Town Council meeting for Monday, October 11th, 2021. Let's do a Pledge of Allegiance to start off with. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will have a short invocation here. Okay. Carol, if you could do the roll call.
Vice Mayor Susanna Murdoch.
Here.
Councilmember Elizabeth Baker. Here. Councilmember Vicki Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Andrew Gardner.
Here.
Mayor Charles Poss.
Here. We don't have any minutes to approve. And before we get to citizens' opportunity to address council, probably most people in this room have heard the rumor about Boyd. I guess it's okay to say, hopefully it's okay to say something. So Boyd has decided to retire and live his best life from here forward in retirement. And that'll be in December. He's given us some advance notice so we can get prepared. I do want to say, I mean, Boyd has been just an amazing servant to the town for most, if not all, of his adult life. He is one of the nicest people I've ever had to work with, had the pleasure, I guess I should say, to work with. And that's even after he spent years as a police chief, which probably hardens the best of them. So that says a lot about Boyd. He's done so much for this town and just been a real stabilizing presence as town manager ever since he took over from someone who had a short tenure. And we appreciate everything he's done, and thank you so much, and just look forward to the rest of the time we have to work with you, and wish you the best in retirement when that day comes. So,
appreciate it very much.
We are at the point now of citizens' opportunity to address council. I see you getting up. We are going to talk about the MACC Board situation, so if you want to, okay, all right. So feel free.
My name is Dick Graham. I live at 405 James Boulevard. And I just wanted to give you, it is a little bit about the MACC. I just wanted to give you an update on some of the things that are happening there this coming month. So it's a little bit of an advertisement to everyone who's listening also. In October 21st, or 20th, 30th, 29th, 30th, and 31st, we're going to have Theater in the Sky. This was, you may remember a few years ago, the radio plays that were done right around Halloween. And so we're doing this again, different plays, 4 plays, different suspense plays. And we've been working on this now for a year and a half, so I hope we're good at it. We've gotten within a few days twice of being able to present it, and things had to close down. So hopefully we'll get it done this time and get it over with and move on to some new projects. So hope folks can come to that. It's free, absolutely free. We do appreciate donations. We have a donation bucket, so anybody can come on down. The holiday market is November 6th from 10 to 5. There'll be 14 vendors. We have art, pottery, photography, jewelry, some other things that you might want to buy for either yourself or gifts for the holiday season coming up. Also have some live music and a food truck. So it's something the whole family could come down and participate in. right after the holiday market, which ends at 5, at 6 o'clock, we have the Briars in concert, and they do Americana type music, and they'll have with them Randy Steele and Mike Crowder. So that's a $10 admission fee to that, and it goes from 6 till about 8 or whenever they finish. We also, on November 12th, we'll have Nicholas Edward Williams in concert. I haven't heard him, but I've been told he's really good. He does folk music, storytelling, that sort of thing. And he's going to have with him Gordon Inman, who's one of our teachers, clarinet teacher. Gordon Inman, Cody Ray, Jade Watts, and Emma DuBose will be there playing along with him. It's also going to be a release for his new album, Songs for Old Time's Sake. So that'll be at, let's see, what time did I have it? 7 o'clock on November 12th, and $10 for the tickets. We also want to thank Dennis Parker. I don't know if any of you came to see Love Letters, but if you didn't, you really missed a terrific play. He and Chandra Burnett were in it. Great play, just 2 characters, not a lot of action, but a lot of emotion. I think most people left there with a tear in their eye at the end of the play, but we appreciate him being at the MACC and with his theater company, the Mountain Arts Theater Company that he's starting. And I think it was a very successful start, great play. And also Mary Eliza Hendricks, who many of you probably know, directed it, and she did a fantastic job directing. And of course, we still have our regular lessons in guitar, percussion, ukulele, clarinet, flute, piano, all those are still ongoing. And we've added a couple of new art classes, and we also have an improv class now, so if anybody's interested in improv, come on down. So that's it. That's kind of what's happening at the MACC for the next month.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Any concert with Mike Crowder on the bill is a must-see, that's for sure. So go catch Mike and the band he's playing with. Anybody else have a comment?
Ann Haygood, 506 James Boulevard. I'd just like to thank you for your vote on the upcoming resolution to declare Arbor Day, to celebrate Arbor Day in our town. That may seem a little bit inconsequential to you, but it's actually pretty important, and not just to us on the tree board. Trees, in addition to having environmental and aesthetic value, actually bring us a significant economic value as well. They add to the value of homes and hence to the tax base in our town. With their canopy, they help out on energy costs, not only for the residents, but also for our town properties. They actually contribute significantly to stormwater control. According to the Arbor Day Foundation, for every 10% increase in a watershed's forest cover, there is a 20% decrease in water treatment costs. Also, the Arbor Day celebration does allow us to qualify as a Tree City USA with the Arbor Day Foundation, and that allows us to get grants, actually. The most important part to me, of course, is that it educates our children about trees, and they help us plant them so they learn to love trees. And that's going to result in adult residents who value our environment here and will fight to preserve it. So thank you.
Thank you. Does the tree board have a Facebook page? Yes. Okay, you sent me an article that was really interesting about leaves, and I think I saw that y'all were posting on the Facebook page, but if you're out there, try to find the tree board's Facebook page. That's some good information. Does anyone else wish to address the council? Okay. We'll move on to Honna Rogers. This is the MTAS Departmental Review process. I asked Honna just to give us some information as well about starting the process of trying to replace, or I wouldn't say replace, trying to find a new town manager. So you can do that at, after you talk
Okay.
about the first part. And
Sure.
this is just a brief, it'll be just a brief kind of introduction to what we're going to need to do. So anyway, thank you
Okay.
for coming here, Honna.
Thank you for having me. Honna Rogers with MTAS, also a resident of the town, so happy to be here tonight with you. So the departmental reviews, we used to do citywide very often at MTAS, where we'd go in, look at every single department that involves probably 10 to 15 personnel, lots of hours. We don't do those as much anymore, partly because they often sat on shelves, so we started charging for them. So people weren't as willing to pay for citywide reviews. However, we do still do them department by department for cities, and we do not charge for that if we do one or two at a time. And if we see action being taken, then we don't mind doing another. I have cities who over a few years have reviewed all their departments. What I would say is the way that we review departments is, I don't want people to think of a review as a looking for bad things or there's a problem, so you go in. I often see very successful cities want to do it somewhat on a reoccurring basis to make sure they're staying on top of the latest things. I sometimes have staff request it because it's a great way to say, look, they're showing we might need another staff person here. Sometimes that happens. I don't know of a department that we couldn't walk into in the state and find some recommendations on, mainly because we all have financial limitations on the things we can do, right? But what MTAS does is we come in with, depending on the department, the specialty consultant, and then also myself work on it as management consultant. We interview all the personnel. We talk with them. We ask for information from them and data. It's a larger overview of the department. For instance, we are going to compare it to other cities of similar sizes, but we're not going to get in the minutia of what they're doing day to day. I mean, there's just not time to do that. We're trying to give you, from a management perspective, things that could be improved upon. I'll give you an example. I have a city larger than this, so they get quite a few building inspections, codes, those type of things. Really, we're struggling to staff a position that handled that. And so, one of the recommendations, which isn't a real hard, far out there one, was an automated system that someone could walk in City Hall and use if they weren't a building person and familiar with it. And it helped them save a position because so many people were comfortable enough using it. And so that's kind of the types of a lot of technology we may look at, and just best practices. So that's what we do in a department review. They're all really different depending on the department you look at. Some cities may only do one or two departments. Some may choose to start with one or two and then work their way through them. I'd say probably our most common ones are police and fire, get done a lot, because sometimes people choose to do them when those positions may turn over. They're also probably the easiest to do because there's a lot of data in police and fire. But we do regularly public works, plannings, codes. We could do finance, administration, any of those. Yeah. What questions do you have on that? Because I kind of breezed through it.
Does anybody have any questions?
So, Honna, you'll sort of take it department by department, and I think one of the things that you explained to us is that they'll be done consecutively, so like in a shorter amount of time.
So we can. So once, like if we start with one or two at a time, so if we did two right now and we began those, they can take anywhere from 3 to 5 months usually to do. So depending on how.
In entirety.
Per department.
Okay, per department.
Mm-hmm. So a quick one's about 3 months, because you have to understand, like, let's say we're doing our water department, our water consultants in West Tennessee.
Yeah.
So you have to schedule them here and go through that. And so it just depends on the availability of the MTAS staff and what other jobs they have going on. And it depends on the availability of staff here in interviewing that. And sometimes certain departments have a lot of information to get to us. So it might take them some time to get that together.
Okay.
And so I would take direction from you all as to which ones to start with. And then once those were completed and you saw those reports, we would move on. And I would say I mean, you could have as few as, I don't know, 20 maybe recommendations in a department, and as many as, I did one for a city that had 100. And they've done quite a few of those since we did that one. That was one of the first ones I did on a fire department.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, one more question. Based on that, well, we haven't decided, I guess we're talking really about all of our departments being looked at. So, and some of them, there might be different consultants in different areas of Tennessee or whatever that are looking at different departments. So it's probably hard to give us a ballpark estimate about how long you think the process would take for a town our size if we, want to look at everything.
Right. I would say it's typically a couple of years.
Okay.
You can do that in less, but what we usually watch is it's done and we might go ahead and start another, but once we hit maybe 3 or 4, we're going to monitor to see, have you done anything in those first couple? And more than likely you have, because there are a lot of just easy things to go ahead and fix or do. We're not asking you to invest a lot of money or that you have to check everything off the list. It's just out of respect for the time and the commitment it is. We just want to see that it's, I guess, being utilized, yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about a couple of years process.
I would say.
Anybody else have any questions?
And I would say the only way it's faster is if we are actually, people choose to pay and do the whole thing at once, then there's more priority put on it, but that's not necessarily what we want you to do, nor do we think it's necessary to do it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you typically have like a board that you might work with to go through it? We have a personnel committee, but we also have, the town council members and the town manager.
So usually we're going to work with the town manager on it mostly. And then if it's just depending on what the different departments are. So for instance, if we look at your planning and your building and your codes, then we might, if we need to, we would talk with your planning person out of, I think you use the development district, but we may, if need be, talk with the planning commission director or whatever, they feel. The city manager basically gets interviewed for everything. I mean, because they obviously know all the departments, so they're going to be involved. And then you go to department head and down. And in some departments, it just depends. We may even go down lower levels like sergeants or talking with them. Just depends on the department.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Other questions?
And if you don't have a preference, like you might have one department but not know the other one you want to do, I am also happy to look at the availability of consultants and say, this consultant's going to be available sooner. We won't have to wait a month to start or 2 months to start. I don't mind.
Yeah, that might be a good idea. We're going, I don't know, with a change in leadership, I'm not sure if it's good to, I don't know if it'd be good to do administrative or better to wait until, that kind of settles itself out. But maybe it's better to start with whoever is the most available.
Okay. Yeah, it's up to you all. And that is true. I mean, sometimes managers come in and make changes on their own.
Yeah.
And sometimes they might use a report that's there. So.
Thoughts on that, guys? Anyone?
I think it would be a great thing to have that, some of the data collected so that we can give it to the new person, and then they would have a dual way to get information. And I also think that for departments that we need to pick Mr. Veal's brain as quickly as possible. So
are you talking about an administrative review first, or just to go ahead and get started with the?
Go ahead and get started with whatever we can, whatever is going to be the most available.
Yeah. So
that we can go for it. I don't know that doing an administrative review at this point would be as beneficial as doing other departments.
I would say we should also prioritize just larger expenditure departments, larger budgeted.
I was thinking that too.
To kind of, meat and potatoes first, and depending on availability, that those would be, maybe have bigger opportunities or costs that we need to be looking at, just being bigger budget items.
Sure, and I have a feeling we might meet again soon. as a group. And so if you want, we could certainly, I can gather some information, and I could even send you each individually an email with that information, and then we could talk about it at
Okay.
another meeting if you want, once I know availability.
Okay.
Would that be good?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, all right.
Anything else before we move on to the next topic? Okay, thank you for that.
So speaking on the city manager hiring process, I've just, in Hamilton County, I'm getting really good at this now, because I think this is going to be all but maybe one of our managers changing due to retirements and other reasons. And I have one going on right now in Hamilton County, a city manager hiring process. So I've been doing a lot this year around my region. So I have a long presentation I'm happy to give you all. I'm going to give you a summary right now, and if you want more information, I can provide it. I can also email you a document that'll give you some more information. It's really however the council wants it done. We want to work with you and do as much or as little at MTAS as you would like. So we are involved from the start of it all the way through, if that's what you wish. And from the start involves even looking at the job description, seeing if anything needs to be updated there. We can do interviews with the board, with the council members and staff to see, does anything need to change? Like we would talk with Boyd and with you all, and update the job description as need be. That also helps us look and form the ad to know what to advertise for. I'm sure you probably already have a salary range, is that correct? Set, okay, that's good. That makes it a lot easier. So we would look at what kind of city manager it is you're wanting to hire, and that helps us just begin the process. And then we would help you get the advertisement out. I'd recommend advertising nationally with the International City Management Association. That's where you're going to get most of your applications out of Tennessee, from my experience. That's where it's going to come from. So you all would advertise it, we'd get those resumes in and applications, and if you would like, then we will at MTAS score those for you. And so that gives you an outside view that's kind of used to reading resumes and what you're looking for. That is just for you to use and look at. It doesn't mean you take the top few of them to interview. But that helps give you kind of some narrowing in and thinking and discussion when you all get together. You would, as a council, choose who you want to move forward. Usually that's going to be 3 to 4 people out of all of them. We have been getting anywhere from 30 to 40 applications in a lot of cities. Your size, probably, we should hopefully get around 30 for this size of a city. And we would then move into the interview process. And that's where you really have some options too. In Red Bank and Collegedale, we did what's called an assessment center. And that is where we have a panelist of city manager professionals come in, and we put them through an interview process. Let me back up and say, when we interview the council members and the chief, I'm sorry, that's old school. I called them that for a while. And Boyd and the council member, the department heads, we're looking for what we would call competencies. And that's almost characteristics. It's those things that you can't see in a person so much, they can't put on a resume. And so I call them characteristics, the scientific term's competencies. But we would use those in the process of an assessment center, because those city manager professionals aren't looking at their resumes, they're not looking at their skill sets, they're looking at those competencies, those characteristics, and then they're giving you a recommendation. And so around the same time they're doing that, and that's, like I said, what they did in Collegedale and Red Bank, right after that, the council is also interviewing those candidates. And so when you're finished, you then have your interviews as a group, you have this recommendation from professionals, and then if you so choose, you can do individual interviews as well. You can do a reception for the community and your employees to come to. So you have a lot of options from that. And then the last thing I'll touch on that's an option for you, it's called the California Psychological Inventory. It's called the CPI. And it's a really good tool that a lot of cities find useful that look at those competencies. They take a test and assessment online, and it's proved very useful for cities. I have seen candidates where it says, do not hire this person, they don't have leadership skills, and they actually interviewed okay, you know? And then I've seen people that just scored really high. What I would say is none of those things are the single thing you look at when you hire someone. But when you're hiring a position as important as a city manager, it gives you multiple tools to use when you're trying to make a selection so that you just have as much information as possible. A standard interview does not tell you a lot. 45 minutes or an hour doesn't tell you very much. So using as much as you can is a helpful thing. And what I'll do is I have that summarized in a proposal that we do that I'm happy to send to you. Any of those things we can help with, we do not charge for that at MTAS, so there won't be a fee for any of those things. So
Okay.
the only cost to you would be, most cities choose to pay to bring in any out-of-town candidates, so that's up to you. There's that cost and minor things like hosting them or the assessors, those types of things. So.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
What is the typical time frame?
Yeah, so with an assessment center, I would say about 3 months.
Okay.
It's all in how quickly we get out the advertisement, because that is typically out for 4 weeks. Unless we don't get enough, then sometimes it goes to 6 weeks, but usually 4 weeks for that, a couple weeks to review, and then a couple, it just takes some time. Without an assessment center, you could possibly do it in 2 months, 2.5. It doesn't add all that much time because honestly, we do it at the same time we interview if there's out-of-town candidates, because we don't want people to have to come twice. And like I said, my experience are most are coming from out of state now.
Do you have a ballpark figure, like if you could, like for us to budget as far as the amount of money that we may need to use?
I'm thinking of, I think that some cities recently that had to bring in a few people probably spent around 3,000 or 4,000. Like, it's not as much as one would think, really. It just depends where they're flying from. It's very different to flying from Ohio than it is Portland. So I just flew from Portland, so that's what's on my head. It was not cheap. So, yeah.
I think we should have a special meeting to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Maybe in a week or
A
even
work
less.
session?
Yeah.
Yeah, as
I'll
soon
be
as
gone.
possible.
I'll be out of town Thursday night. We couldn't do it that soon, at least not with me there. So if y'all want to do it without me Thursday, that's fine, but otherwise maybe
Well,
next week,
let me-
Tuesday.
What information are we going to get between then and now that we can't? Or do we need to kind of mull it over, which is fine too?
I think having the full presentation from
presentation.
Honna, getting.
Yeah,
ready-
it's just drawn out a little more, but that was most of the information.
Okay.
I just got my, fast talking on, but I'm happy to do that. Mainly the thing is, if you want to move forward with it, then I can move forward with starting to schedule interviews. And so that's probably the one thing that takes a little longer, is getting myself and someone else in here to begin interviews with council members and department heads.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start it.
Okay, yeah.
I agree.
So that, and then really the next thing, I'm happy to do another meeting with you, is going to be looking at the job description that I put together. And
Yeah.
that's probably a couple weeks out or a few weeks out.
Okay.
So it could be that I'm happy to come back to your next meeting and talk with you about it more, but I'm happy to do another meeting.
And
as
so you
well.
Well-
said when you run the ad in the publication, do you run the ad for 4 weeks, or do you
Mhm.
typically run it? Okay.
It's in there for 4 weeks. Well, that's how long we leave it out, but you just pay a one-time fee on like
Right.
ICMA. I will take care of sending it to TCMA, TML, MTAS, all of those acronyms that we do in the state.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the city if you want to advertise it in the paper or somewhere.
Okay.
So
So-
most of your advertisement's free. It's mainly the TML, or the International City Management Association that will cost, and that's a one-time fee, and then the local papers, you might put it in, if you
Right.
want to. Not everybody does.
Okay, so sounds like we don't need to have a special meeting. We can just have you come back, I guess, at our next
Okay.
meeting, and
Sure.
then whatever
We
you do
all-
in the interim.
Agree, we like this process, and I
Yeah.
mean, there's maybe points that we need to decide later, but the beginning of it, which is interviewing council members,
Yes.
Boyd, to kind of
Right.
hone in the job description.
Correct. And how you want to interview doesn't have to be decided right now. So you could decide that, in a couple weeks, a few weeks. I just need to know that probably around then to start scheduling it. But I can send you the proposal. You all can read through it. If you have more questions, we can either schedule a meeting or you can just ask them at the next one, if you like.
Okay. All right, that was a good point, that
Yeah.
I maybe jumped ahead a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, because we could still decide down the road after the when we get to talking about assessment center or no assessment center, how we're going to do interviews as a group or individually, but we don't have to decide those now, but I think
Right.
sounds like a great process. We should start proceeding with
Right.
the beginnings of it. There's
Yeah.
I don't see much to
Probably
discuss.
the only time thing is gonna be that we're probably gonna be interviewing in December. And so we do want to try to move forward so that because we're obviously not gonna want to interview those last 2 weeks of December. And so we don't want to have to push it to January, but what I'll do, if you're okay with this, I will put you together 2 schedules that show you with an assessment center, without assessment center, kind of the calendar that it would take, and that'll give you a little bit better idea. I'll email
That'd
that
be
to you as well.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you, and we
You're
look forward to
welcome,
working with
and
you.
I cannot sit down without saying how appreciative I am to Mr. Veal for all he's done for our town, and I want to say that while I was technically a supervisor to him at one point, he probably taught me more about leadership than most people have in my life. He was a great chief, and he's done a great job as a town manager, so I'm very appreciative to him.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Thank you, Hannah. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next topic? All right, we'll go straight then to the resolutions. This is the first one, a resolution recognizing and celebrating October 22nd, 2021 as Arbor Day within the town of Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion needed? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No? Okay, that motion passes. Next is a resolution authorizing the town manager to purchase one Bobcat CT 2035, a tractor, and associated attachments and equipment from Clark Equipment through Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative Contract Number whatever, for an amount not to exceed $27,334.60 to be used by the Water Department for the town of Signal Mountain.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? I was confused why we got the whole Sourcewell two parties that aren't us, but you know.
This is a purchasing cooperative, and it's used by the state of Tennessee, so we know it meets all those requirements. But in making a purchase here, we also do basically have to pass by resolution and accept the terms of the contract. So being that by this resolution, you're acknowledging that and accepting the terms of the contract, I thought it appropriate to give you the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but Mr. Cash has reviewed it, and again, we've gone through and confirmed that it does meet all the state requirements for competitive bid, and it's a very good price, and pretty much the exact piece of equipment that the water department needs.
Okay. The contract's been signed by the other parties. We just have to affirm that we will abide by it if
Yes,
necessary.
it is a standing contract.
Yeah.
We're just acknowledging, accepting the terms of it.
I was looking over it and I saw that we had, whoever was party to it had to give workers' comp insurance, and I'm like, wait a minute, we're buying the truck, right? We're not borrowing
Yeah,
it.
those are the requirements for the entity to which the contract is awarded.
Okay. Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
I just have a thank you to Adam and Boyd for investigating leasing as an option. It's
Yeah, that was
That's a
informative.
very good reason. I mean, this is not equipment. This is equipment that is not readily available to lease, for one, and it's also needed in urgent matters to repair people's water
Inexpensive.
lines. So, yeah.
Yeah.
To lease.
Yeah, and in today's day, when nothing's available until 6 weeks from now, probably better to not have to try to lease something. Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Do we know when the equipment could be purchased and delivered? Is it available?
I believe it did say delivery 60 to 90 days
60 to
after we get
90.
all the paperwork done, and so we should get it fairly quickly.
And how does this compare to the budgeted amount?
And I think it is within budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. I've lost my list here. There we go. All right, somebody help me because I've misplaced
You want
the
this?
thing. Yeah, no, just that. I misplaced
Oh.
it for some reason.
We're adopting
Okay.
policies for the water department.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure I'm in order here.
Yeah.
All right, this is a resolution adopting the Town of Signal Mountain Water Department policy as attached hereto as official policy of the Signal Mountain Water Department. And the Water Department policy is attached. We actually got a copy of this at our last meeting and had a chance to look it over. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Actually, I should start with a motion. Do we have a motion to approve? Any second? All right, any discussion to be had on this? We've had a chance to review it. Any questions about the Water Department policy? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. There's my agenda. Okay, that was it. That was the last resolution. There are no ordinances. We'll go straight to discussion. The first is an update on stormwater projects.
I have asked Cliff to come give us an update. I believe Mayor requested that highlight stormwater department activities and an overview of projects that we have upcoming.
Thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for letting me come in and share with you about stormwater projects. I don't know if everyone has got a copy of our 5-year capital improvement plan, but most of these projects that I'll be talking about are on this 5-year capital improvement plan. If we not want to have a copy of these, I can run you guys a copy up real quick.
I don't think we have a copy in our agenda materials.
Thank you.
I think it was asked that we give an update on some projects that were in the works, so to speak. We have about 7 different projects going on right now that are at different phases. We've got a couple of them that are not necessarily word for word on the capital improvement plan, but they could be considered to be under some of those miscellaneous items of some drainage pipes that need to be replaced every year. We have one on Dunsinane, near 608 Dunsinane, that's a pipe that's going to need to be replaced. We've got one on Ohio Avenue that's going to need to be replaced. We've got 2 of them on Hidden Brook Lane that are going to need to be replaced. We've got another one on Texas Avenue that we're going to be working on. We're possibly going to do that one in-house with our own people. But each of those is going to have little bit of engineering cost with it, along with some construction cost. And I can give you those numbers. Most of those are going to have engineering costs that's going to range right around $5,000 each. Some of them we haven't gotten estimates from the engineers yet. And the construction cost is all estimated, but running anywhere between $40,000 and say $50,000. Those are all pretty minor projects.
Cliff, if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt, but could you
That's fine.
describe what's going on with these culverts and pipes that are necessitating the repairs or replacements?
These are, without a doubt, all corrugated metal storm drain pipes that have been in place for many, many years, and they are rusting out and causing some degree of road failure in most cases. The roads are sinking in. We're starting to see some sinkholes at the edge of the road, behind the curbs, things like that. So we'll not only be replacing the pipe, but we'll be replacing head walls and curbing, having to replace pavement on the road when all this is done. So those costs of those jobs, that's the reason they're costing as much as they do.
I am having trouble keeping up. So these
Okay.
projects you're talking about are on this list, or are they not on this list?
The ones I just mentioned are not on the list.
Okay.
If you want to consider them on the 5-year plan, they're over near it's on the second page. And we had second to the bottom line there, we estimated replacing CMP pipes. That CMP is the corrugated metal pipe that we were just talking about. And without knowing exactly how many we could do every year, we've got a number of these pipes all across town. So we kind of averaged out when we made this list and said, hey, we need to replace about 5 of these every year,
Okay.
just to get us back in the right direction of getting all this infrastructure back to where it needs to be.
And the highlighted, my eyes keep going to the shiny stuff, the pink highlights?
Yeah, those pink highlights on your list are projects that we've already completed.
Okay.
You will notice there's a couple of things that I circled with a red ink pen, and those are things that are in progress right now. And you'll also notice that this 5-year plan was done back in 2019-20 is the first year on here. That was done halfway through that fiscal year, so we added 5 more years on after that. We've been kind of making our way through this 5-year plan as best we could.
Looks like you've done a good job.
Also, projects that are already in the works, we've got some engineering contracts out there for work on Middle Creek Road, another one on Arden Way, and another one on Mississippi Avenue, and those are on the 5-year plan. Some of those are very large projects. The one on Mississippi Avenue is in 3 different areas. It's got very deep pipes. They're way down under the road, so those construction costs are going to go up exponentially.
The Arden Way one is on here for 40,000. Do you think it's going to be more than that?
We haven't put that out to bid yet, but the Arden Way project is 140 feet length of pipe.
Wow.
And it's pretty good sized pipe, so it's on here for 40,000, and hopefully it comes in real close. I don't know.
Okay. I walk on in Old Town a lot, and I saw on Ohio some lines on the road where there's a drainage pipe that goes under toward the golf carts. Is that something I think you mentioned Ohio? Is that something?
Ohio Avenue right there next to Louisiana. That is one of the pipes that we're having an engineer look at right now.
Okay, so that's why it's painted. All right.
Right, we painted those marks out there for the one call system to come out and mark all the underground utilities.
Okay. Excellent.
I
We had
know.
some surveyors come up, and they've been out there locating everything so that the engineer can do his design.
Okay, sounds good.
As far as the request to look at things that we would love to start and may or may not have money to do, that would be everything left on the 5-year plan.
Can you tell us about the street sweeper?
We would love to be able to purchase a new street sweeper. I think this has been requested maybe a couple of years in the past, and I have taken the time and researched some street sweepers. We know which one we would like to purchase. We know how much it's going to cost, and we know that we can purchase that on a 5-year lease plan, but we have to have the money first.
Right.
That street sweeper will not only sweep the streets, it'll also have what they call a wandering arm. It's big hose attachment, kind of looks like the leaf machines that we pick up leaves with, but it has an attachment that can be dropped down into catch basins and clean out catch basins with it. It can also be used to pick up leaves in the case of, you got a pile of leaves at the end of a cul-de-sac or something where the leaf machines can't really get close to them or something.
Mhm.
That wandering arm can go in there and pick up those leaves. It'd be a big help towards leaf season while we're picking up some leaves in places too. So hopefully that street sweeper will have a lot more functionality than the street sweeper that we did have. I think this past week we got rid of the old street sweeper off Gov Deals and got a fairly decent price for that street sweeper as far as I could tell.
Okay.
But there's equipment, there's street sweepers, there's camera systems for evaluating some of these storm drain pipes. Another big project that's on our 5-year plan is some stream restoration work. Let me see if I can find it on the sheets here. Yeah, it's on the second page, about 5 or 6 lines down. The B branch stream restoration projects. Taken some time in the past to sit down and talk with some engineering firms that are environmental engineers. They do this kind of work. They gave me an estimate that was $90-something thousand to do the initial assessments and testing and analysis of the condition of B branch. And just so you'll know, B branch is listed as an impaired stream within our town, not only for E. coli, but also for sedimentation. And the restoration work would be more towards the sedimentation problems that B branch has. This project would be broken down over a couple of years at least, if not 3 or 4. And the engineering firm would have time to come in and do their testing, their sampling, lots of different things that they would have to prove is going on in B branch before we could start any kind of designs or projects. And that $90,000 gets us up to that stage, to where we can actually do projects. Once we have all of that study done and everything, those projects could use grant monies to be able to do those projects at that time.
You mentioned that there's E. coli problems as well as the sedimentation.
Yeah.
And like how to fix the E. coli problems, and if you don't fix that, is it advisable to fix the sedimentation problem separately?
Fixing the sedimentation problem has been proven to help with the E. coli problem too.
Okay.
The sediment actually carries that E. coli from place to place also.
Yeah.
So kind of 2 separate issues, and we could do one without the other, but fixing that sedimentation problem also can help with the E. coli levels also.
Okay.
What sorts of findings, I mean, I know we don't know what we would find, but so we spend 90,000, what sorts of findings and remedies do we expect we might think we would get out of that?
Some of that $90,000 is gonna go towards things like stream assessments, visual assessments, outfall assessments, and it hones us in on certain areas where the individual projects can take place.
Okay.
And then the engineer concentrates on the areas with the highest priority or the highest benefit to us at that time.
And what, like, a project would be, they would identify a particular,
A perched outfall, in other words, a drain pipe comes out of the side of a bank and the water drops 3 or 4 feet and causes a big pool at the bottom. Those kind of outfalls can be reworked. Those drain pipes would have to be redone. Some more outlet protection type stuff, those kind of things would all be projects that could be done down the road as we get to where they need to be done at.
yeah. And I guess it depends on the project, but you said grant money are typically available for this. Are they
It's
typically 50-50, 100 maybe?
No, I don't think anything's gonna be 100% grant, but there are 319 grants out there that would become available for doing the individual projects as we get to them.
I see that you started some 2022-23 project, or a 2022-23 project. Was that like pushed up because of need? That was the something on Mar Drive.
Yeah, that's one of those large drain pipes on Mississippi Avenue that's above Mar Drive. That's one of those very deep pipes. We started 3 of those projects, started the engineering on 3 of projects on Mississippi Avenue, trying to get the drainage and everything corrected on Mississippi Avenue so that it would be able to be paved.
I see, okay.
So that's kind of getting a step ahead of public works paving projects.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
And there's lots of other projects out there to do that are not on this list, I'll just tell you.
Well, I mean, this is a good list
We have-
to be able to go look at and kind of check off and see what we're doing.
We have several roads here in town that need to have entire hydrology studies done on the road, and not only does the drainage need to be worked out, but possibly road work and relocating other utilities to make it possible to fix the drainage. Miles Road, for one. Signal Road has lots of drainage problems that we don't really have a good way to fix without just totally revamping a road.
Okay,
So those are not on here as stormwater projects necessarily, but could very easily be very large projects to be looked at.
I'd like to say thank you, because there's so many moving pieces to what you do, and it's like dominoes, and keeping that all organized is something that I really appreciate, and thank you for your hard work and your team.
You are very welcome, and you are correct. There are a lot of different things that need to be done
It's like
within stormwater. So-
spinning plates, what you're doing.
so this, I guess, this was put together, I guess, with, I don't know when, 2018?
Probably, this was actually put together at the end of 2019,
Okay,
halfway through the 1920 fiscal year.
all right. I'm just wondering, like, when do you anticipate having another 5-year plan? You wouldn't wait till this is over, right? Or would you do that?
This, to me, this 5-year plan is really kind of a living document and needs to be changed from time to time. So far, we've been able to kind of keep up with the pace of everything the last couple of years. We didn't overload it on the front end because we knew we didn't have tons of money either.
Right,
We have, thanks to you guys, just approved some new stormwater fees. And I think that's going to go a long ways towards helping move forward with this 5-year plan.
Oh, good, good.
That's,
And, you know, this is basically the document. One of the main reasons for its development was looking to have something to give to MTAS to help us establish what our revenue needs were going to be to meet the demand. So it will continue to grow each year
right.
or two at the most, look at what the next years out are going to look like. So between the increase in the fees and the COVID relief funds that we're looking at using for stormwater and water infrastructure, we'll be able to make a much more significant dent in these projects.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, you know, sometimes hard decisions are made to increase fees, but those hard decisions are made so that we can take care of the non-sexy problems that you don't see. Pipes underground deteriorate, rust, and have to be replaced. People don't see that or care because there's not a new shiny object on the road, but this stuff needs to happen so we don't get in a bad state of repair for our town. So, yeah, thank you. I echo Vicky's comments. Thank you very much for your work and doing all this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on that subject? Next on the agenda is the MACC Board. But let's take the masking in town places out of turn, because that might be a little easier, quick thing to take care of before we talk about the MACC Board. Does anybody have any suggestions on the mask policy? I'll kind of start with Boyd. How's it going? What do you see?
I think we're fine where we are now. The numbers are heading back in a positive direction. I think in relatively short order, if we consider to ease up on those restrictions, I'd like the opportunity to actually kind of talk to staff and measure their comfort levels. But I think at least I like that we're revisiting this literally just about every 2 weeks. So if we stay where we are for another couple of weeks and see where things are headed, and then take the opportunity to talk to staff and see how things are going in their individual buildings and departments, and then go from there would be my recommendation.
All right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think that your input is most valuable because you're dealing with everybody on a daily basis. So thank you, and that'll be great. We'll look forward to hear what you have to say after talking with people, kind of evaluating where we are in 2 weeks. So we'll keep it as status quo. 2 weeks, we'll address this again and see if we're going to make any changes. Okay, that was easy and quick. So now we can talk about the MACC Board, which might be a little more time-consuming. I'll start. We have a MACC Board that is empty, and I've said several times that we have a board that's empty that we need to fill, and that's kind of it. But I mean, we may have some comments about the MACC Board and whether it needs to be filled or not. So, go ahead.
Well, I've been the liaison, and the MACC Board, and it's the former MACC Board, opted to fold into SMEPF's board. So it leaves us just not knowing what the purpose would be, because the board members all agreed by consensus that they were not needed, because SMEPF was filling that function. So I guess the decision we have to make is, do we want to fill that board, and if so, what is their function? What are their responsibilities? What is their oversight? Because I think it would be different than it was.
Yeah.
And we need to decide, is it really necessary at this point? I think one of the things that we've talked about is the issue of transparency and communication between SMEPF and the town council. And I know Mr. Graham has been here a couple times giving us information. in an attempt to give it, to, just to share what's going on. I've really appreciated that. And so, in looking at what you said about all the folks that were on there, now they've actually, most of them are on the SMEPF board. I really don't know what they would do. I think what I would like to see is us to find a way to be able to have a confidence in what's going on and be able to know that that what's happening at the MACC, the daily operations, are being run well, which they are. They're being run. It's growing. The new people are coming in all the time. So I would love to see us be able to say, good job, and continue to have the financial information sent to us quarterly, continue to have reports given to us about what's going on, and be able to look at it from that perspective. Now, that's in a perfect world, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the board doesn't have to meet every month. I don't know how often the MACC board met before.
They were meeting
And,
monthly.
yeah, I mean, if you had a MACC board that was in more of an oversight role rather than an active daily programming role, it doesn't have to meet. It could meet quarterly with the folks at the MACC to go over all the financials that, whatever needs to be gone over, to make sure the programming is consistent with what the town wants to provide. We shouldn't forget, and these guys live in the town and their interest is the town. I don't doubt that. But at the same time, that's a private organization. So if the town, feels like something more needs to be done or different, the MACC board could meet with the SMEPF board and talk about what the town might want or what different things that the two boards want to do, and can go over the financials or whatever, and then report back to the town council.
It sort of gives you the arts and culture department, which we have. I mean, it's a piece of our pie. It's 1%, but it's still there. And but I think that the SMEPS folks, the volunteers there, are just doing a magnificent job, obviously, with programming and with day-to-day operations. It's just a hub of activity all the time. And it's not just inside the building, it's outside the building as well, with all the improvements that they're doing to the grounds and the pollinator garden, and the garden club has a presence there, and they're working on developing a community garden. So there really is, it is a hub of activity, and it's our property. So on the one hand, I don't think that the town needs to be needling in their business and SMEPF's, business there. But I agree with Vicki. I mean, we just need to have kind of a connection, in whatever form that's going to take.
And I agree with you on that. And there's some things that I'm still catching up on real quick, but how does the town accounting work towards the capital improvements that are funded through the town, and possibly, and I mean, this isn't anything to do with the people that are running it, because they're doing a fantastic job, but maybe a MACC board could help support long-term maintenance ideas and suggestions, because that will always be, I mean, the preservation fund, we can say that they'll run it for 20 years and that will be wonderful, or 40 years or whatever, but it's always going to be the town's responsibility to maintain it. And with all of the improvements that have been over there, I think that the town needs to be thoughtful on how that's going to be maintained. At the moment, it's being maintained by the preservation fund, which is fantastic. But I'd like to see a long-term maintenance plan for all of their improvements, because I would not want to see, if something were to happen, which I'm hoping never, but it's going to come back onto the town's responsibility to maintain all of the amazing things that are happening there. So I think maybe a MACC board could be beneficial in that way.
I mean, it could be that you could have, you know, a member or two from their board and a couple of members at large from the community. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big, a large committee of people that are, you know, like I said, needling their day-to-day operations. It's really just more of like an oversight mechanism, because it is a board that was established by ordinance, and it is a department of our town. And I like the idea of us saying that, you know, we have an arts and culture, I mean, you know, as it presently stands, that's a department within our town. And so that strengthens that.
Yeah. Almost like a go-between. So
Yeah.
what we want to do is make sure that the SMEPF has the autonomy
Yes.
to do things the way they've been doing them, because they've been doing it right, and to have the capacity to make the decisions they need to make in a manner that that gives them the kind of freedom they need to do that. And then maybe we could have, it's almost like a go-between to have, and I like your idea, but just a couple of community members at large, a couple of board members get together every quarter, talk about what's happened, and can report back to us. I also thought your thought was, it's an interesting thought, not in the way of having, of looking at a plan that going forward for the maintenance of what's coming up and what's necessary, but more as a support to the SMEPF, so that we can look at it. And because I know this year it was a capital outlay of $60,000, is that right?
Yes.
So that way it could be, I would love to see the relationship between the town council and SMEPF, or the town council and the folks who run the MACC, be highly trusted and be very positive, because it hasn't been always, and that concerns me. Because I guess I'm biased. I have a kid who is getting nearly $15,000 a semester in scholarships as a result of some of the private music lessons he received at the MACC. So there is I mean, that's huge for me, and I'm not the only one. So my goal and my hope is that we can find a way to be able to say to the folks that are daily working there and doing such a great job, keep doing what you're doing. And I would like for us to be in the position to be able to look at them and say, how can we help? And, you know, that's what I would like.
The board currently is supposed to be 7 people. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but we'd have to change it by a resolution, right?
Yeah, I maybe have a little different feeling on it, and welcome y'all's thoughts. And that's just, I know that's the traditional framework we think of as like, how can we properly care for an asset of town? Well, we need a citizen board to oversee and serve as this kind of intermediary, or whatever that role is. But how I kind of feel about it is like, let's, in case you haven't noticed, I like to try to eliminate unnecessary things, whether that's an extra meeting or, I feel like, I mean, Mr. Graham's been coming and keeping us informed and getting some good advertising in there, and I love that. If we can take ownership of keeping that communication going, I don't know what value to the whole equation a MACC board adds anymore. And yes, it's the traditional way we do that, but maybe there's a better way now, where I know at various points a liaison had been mentioned, like one of us could go attend their SMEPF meetings, and we're kind of eliminating the middleman there to some extent.
well, I turned on my thing, I was out to take a sip of coffee, and I made a big lots of noise. So I don't know that having the liaison on the SMMEPF board would be as
Well,
beneficial as we think. However, you're right, we have to find a way to eliminate some of the extra stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to burden an extra, they're already doing an excellent job reporting to us their progress. They're always open for us to come there and meet with them and find out more and discuss things. I feel like that's very good progress, and I'm not sure that going back to the old framework is better
I'm not
for
even-
their autonomy or for the town.
You know, in a perfect world, like I was saying earlier, if I were to walk out of here with like a unicorn horn coming out of my face and, you know, everything be great, it would be that we would be able to say, keep giving us reports and
Yeah, maybe we get
And
on
let's
a
just see
regular
what happens.
reporting schedule kind of.
Right.
But I'm not saying for
yeah,
the programs, we know those are going well, but knowing that, okay, around budget season, we want to see a financial report and a financial plan,
now
January, February.
right, now we're
And
getting
then-
emails every quarter. We should be, I know that the SMEPF board emails Boyd every quarter with the financials, and they're including us at this point. Have you guys, Mr. Graham, have you? Yes.
I'm John Honna, I'm the treasurer,
Hey,
and we will have financials out. They're basically complete. You should be out probably by tomorrow or the next day.
Great.
We'll
Okay.
put your day.
okay,
Uh,
Yeah.
That's our normal routine. We actually now do monthly statements.
Yeah.
MACC, just to let you know, we are in really good shape. We're still continuing a lot of projects in the way of maintenance. Everything from repairs, windows, those are going on. We have opened additional rooms up. And just to let you know about the MACC Board, or
John? Excuse me, if you don't mind, come on up.
Yeah.
Since you got past a word or two, I was,
Okay, all right. Just to let you know how
Could
the,
you also go ahead, since you're at the
Okay.
mic, could you give your name and?
okay, John Har, my address is 26 Hidden Brook Lane, Signal Mountain, longtime resident. I'm treasurer for the Signal Mountain Preservation Fund. The interesting thing about this board, and we are actually growing the board, we're in the process of doing that to about 13 members of the board. This is not like a political board, this is a working board. Everyone has various positions, jobs that they do, the way of bringing this thing forward in regards to marketing, programs and development, no hidden agendas. It's really a great thing to be in the way of running an organization. And that's probably the most important thing, is that we respect the town. We want to work with the town to do all, and there are a lot of things to do, because historically, knowing this building, it was kind of a bastard stepchild, excuse my expression. Where there was money needed to do repairs, it was probably passed on. That's the reason why when this board, and when I came onto this board, the building was basically ready to shut down. It did not meet fire codes. It did not have sprinkler systems. There was the theater center had mold problems, flooring, chairs, everything. Everything in that building was just on the brink. And now it's being resurrected. The resurrection still continues, and there's always a lot more to do. And I want to commend the Grahams, because they've done a wonderful job of making this go forward, along with Angie and Dan Landrum, who are no longer serving. But we will continue without problem to supply all the financial documents you need.
yes, please, that would be very, I think that would go a long way with us if you could just include us or have Boyd forward it to us.
We just need a list. It's not a difficulty at any time to do that. So I've been taking over the financials things for about the last 2 years. There are going to be some issues we need to get involved with, and expenses that we'll have to absorb in a way against as part of the lease, having audits done of the board's records, but that should be very minimal, hopefully. I don't foresee any problems there. But again, we're growing the board. The funding and the amount of donations are still continuing. We have a stream. The classes, as they expand and get more classes going, I see that as being where we can really start increasing how much funding we have. We do have one person that we are currently also that works part-wise on the board that is actually helping us with daily work in the building too, that we are paying now. So we are making progress in that. It's going to be a little bit of a long road, but it wasn't built overnight. And I think that we're all in the right direction. And as long as we can work with the city council and town council to have this nice, very streamlined communication of everything that's going on, and we could actually get more community involved over time too. I think it's gonna be a very positive atmosphere for the town. My priority is with the YMCAs, so it's kind of the same thing. Where are we at? We're at the MACC, and maybe that should be a thing. We're at the MACC, and we hope that you'll work with us in that frame of mind.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I love the idea of getting financials and then from there having quarterly reports given to us. I would like to see how that goes. I don't, can we legally just leave the MACC Board can we leave it open and have it just nobody in it? Are we allowed to do that?
I think we've had boards kind of like that, haven't we?
Like that, what is it?
Maybe
Because
not
I'm
by
in charge of the
choice.
condemnation
Sort of.
board. I think I'm the only member on the condemnation board at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can just sort of leave it dormant, put it in
I think-
hiatus status for a little while and give it
And
some
I know you
time.
didn't get your answer yet, so I hate to kind of go another way. And to me, it's not about like the preservation fund's financial statements to us, but it's our oversight of the capital improvement dollars to taxpayers that have to be answered.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure like what the process is of them receiving that $60,000, and I don't necessarily need to know because that's more operational. But there does need to be some type of, reporting of that, so to say, because I know, and again, I'm just going by listening to meetings, but it seemed like at the budget meeting and then at the two meetings about the lease and the MOA, there wasn't like a specific use stated for the capital improvement funds. Yes.
Any of the funds that we budget, we spend. So
Okay.
if we have, like I said, this year we have 60,000 and it's earmarked primarily for electrical and HVAC upgrades, finishing up the HVAC, doing electrical work, and also doing some roof repair. Anything that is done with town dollars is done through the town's
Okay. And
purchasing process. We'll bid it out, we'll award it, we'll do all of that.
so,
So the money doesn't go to them
Yeah.
for use. It stays with us
Right.
and we manage the project.
so I guess one question that was asked to me, and I can't answer it, was, so then does the town decide on those capital improvements, or is that the preservation fund, or is it a joint decision? And who is it a joint decision of? That was some of the questions.
Ultimately, it's the town's decision how to spend those funds. We do that initially through the budget process with input from SMPF, what they think are the primary goals for the coming year in terms of the facility. And then, as always happens, things come up during the course of the year, such as a roof leak. We're going to use the funds to do the most pressing projects. And so it's a cooperative effort pretty much from start to finish. But anything that we use tax dollars for, the town
Okay.
management, facilities, we will look at it and make sure that it's appropriate and it's done in compliance with our purchasing guidelines.
Yeah, I think I'd asked during that meeting that we had at the MACC, like getting a long-term plan of what needed to be done, capital improvement wise. And, you know, it didn't seem like anybody wanted to do that. I think it would be a good idea for the town to know, hey, you know, in the next 5 or 10 years, these are the things capital improvement wise that need to be done at the MACC, so that we can know what's coming down the road. I don't know why that couldn't be done. That's kind of off track of whether we need a MACC board or not, but
That's good information, though.
yeah, there's no reason not to be able to know that. We have a 5-year plan for our sewer, stormwater project, so we can have a 5-year plan for capital improvement at the MACC as well.
That's a good idea.
We do have a list of major projects for all of the facilities coming up when we basically formed the facilities maintenance department. We have a list of projects. I don't know how far out they go for the MACC at this point, but there are projects there, and we can take a more detailed look at that. But it's something that's visited each year, and again, that's during part of the budget process. But it's something we do town-wide. I'm not sure if we're at 5 years out right now, but we have at least a multi-year project list for all the facilities in the town.
I mean, back to the board itself, you know, I don't have really a necessarily opinion on, I don't think we should dissolve the board. I don't know why we would dissolve the board and whose idea that's been rumored, and why, I don't really know why everybody quit on the board that we had. But, you know, I've been on a board that was fine until it wasn't, and suddenly it wasn't in existence anymore because it dissolved. It was a private organization. So sometimes things just change for whatever reason, and I don't know that
It's my understanding that no, I could be wrong, that the board, the resignations from the board members on the MACC board was a statement of support for the SMEPF, and that what they believed was that these folks should carry forward what was happening. And I know the letter that we got, expressed that. So I think things do change, and I do like the idea of maybe leaving the board empty and moving forward from here and saying, how can we help them, and then have the transparency of reports back to us. That sounds really good to me.
anybody else have any thoughts on it?
Is this something we have to have a motion for, or is this just a discussion? Like, do we just decide that this is how it can be?
I think we
I think
can,
it depends on
we
what
can do
we
whatever we
decide.
want.
I mean, we don't have to change anything. We have a board that isn't filled, and I think you've advertised it for it, and nobody's
I think
so far
we've
interested.
had one applicant, is it?
I would
One thing
rather,
I'm,
to the extent
I'm
we
sorry.
get applications for, and it's somebody who's like, hey, I'll serve anywhere. I mean, we're gonna get more value as a town out of somebody going on a personnel committee or
Or
the
the,
MACC board at this point.
yeah,
Since we're short of volunteers.
or the condemnation board, since I'm on the board.
It's full.
I'm
If-
there by myself.
if I might make a suggestion, if the will of the council is to not fill the board at this time, and I think one of the things that might be problematic is have the situation just kind of in limbo. If you're going to do away with the board, that would take an ordinance to do that. But I think as a kind of an approach that would be definitive, but not necessarily final, we could do a resolution stating that the will of the council is to retain but not fill the MACC board for a period of 1 year, at which time it'll be revisited or something like that, or 6 months or whatever. But at least doing something like that gives it a definitive
Yeah.
decision. And it's not, then we know what the next step is, and that's come back in a year and have the conversation and make a decision from there.
I like that idea.
It's not something you have to do, but I think
Yeah.
it would kind of frame things effectively.
And I think, like, whatever the resolution says, I think the timing should be at the end of the first year, like whatever the months are, until the end. And I know it's a 5-year lease, so to say at the end of the first year, when it's a 5-year lease, but at that point in time, because, again, having just listened to those meetings last week, there was some discussion about, like, at the 1-year point, doing a little bit of reevaluation. So I think if we pass a resolution or have a resolution to go ahead and to leave the MACC Board open or empty, it should have the ending date as whatever that year point is. And then possibly at that point is when we can say, we make a change in the ordinance, if that's the way it is.
Well, I wouldn't want to change the ordinance.
I agree with you
it's
on
a,
that.
It's a lease to a private organization who could decide at any moment they don't want to do it anymore. I'm not saying you do want to decide that, but I mean, they could say, we've had enough. We're tired of this. You guys take over, and then we'd have to do an ordinance to create a
I agree with
MACC
you.
Board again. Okay, well, why don't we, if everybody wants to do that, we can have a resolution to say that it'll remain in place, but empty until, I don't know when, but that lease renews or the term is July to July, right? So it could be May, we talk about it again, just so if, we felt like we needed to fill it, that'd be 2 months before the year comes around.
Okay,
Can we do that? Just a resolution saying it'll be there, but unfilled at the will of the council till May, and then we'll talk about it again in May. Okay.
I like that.
Probably won't have something in there that could be brought up
Sooner.
than that, if they.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right, so,
And one more thing I'd like to say is we have a large number of the SMMPF folks here tonight, and I want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your attendance, and we're all glad to see you here, and we would love it if you came every council meeting. So thank you for being here.
I do like Mr. Graham's periodic updates on what events are going on. I mean,
Absolutely.
I think it's good to get the word out, and this is a pretty good way to do that. So I appreciate you coming here and doing that and telling us what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, guys. We are now to the manager's report.
Really, the only thing I have out of the ordinary, wanted to let you guys know that the contract has been executed with the administrative hearing officer, and he's now in town, actually back out of town this week, or we would have been meeting this week, but we will be meeting with him and the building official and Chief Mitchell next week to kind of set groundwork and work out some of the details on getting some cases in with him, and we'll have him scheduled for the AHO training, I think, next month. So very short order, we'll have everything in place and ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
Do we have some, you don't have to say what they are, but are there items that we're ready to run with the administrative
I
hearing
think
officer?
very quickly after we get these few last details worked out, we will likely have him some business.
Okay. All right.
I have a giant RV parked right in front of my house, and I just refuse to move it.
You do.
I'm just kidding.
Well, there's an abandoned truck that used to be
Yes.
on, is that Coffin Way? But
Yes.
it's gone. So I thought maybe somebody
No,
had.
it's not gone.
I
It
drove by
wasn't.
there yesterday. and
Oh, really? Maybe as of,
I think it was gone.
We're working on those. He will come and to play when such instances don't result in it being gone.
Yeah.
Then they'll go visit him.
It might be gone. I look for it every time I go
walked by there
by.
like 4 days ago and it wasn't, but.
I drove by yesterday and I didn't see it, but maybe. I'm
We've
wrong.
gotten
It does
several
kind of blend
issues
in with
checked
the
off
scenery.
recently, so.
Okay.
But we have a couple more that are longer term, more problematic that I anticipate we'll need some help with.
All right. Okay, anything else from the manager?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. The other business, communications and reports from the mayor and council and reports from committees and boards. Let's combine those. Anyone?
So there was a DRC meeting on September 28th. They heard one case, which was pertaining to the MAPCO BP remodel. I have to say, the DRC members are so knowledgeable and so thoughtful in the way that they explain their process. I was just blown away by them. For the most part, it was approved. There was one thing because apparently several months ago, the project was there too, and they had approved some signs, but then this one had some signs too. So they just said if there, no more signage, but if they needed sign changes to come back. But it was a great meeting and very well-run committee and knowledgeable people and just really
Can I
great.
interrupt just real quickly? Are you picking her up on the mic? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing. so
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank
um,
you.
I'll come this way maybe a little bit
Well,
more.
just speak up a little
Okay.
bit for the mic, so.
Okay, I will definitely do that.
Okay. Any other board committee reports or member reports?
Personnel committee hasn't met. Trouble getting a quorum. Try again here soon.
Okay.
That may be a little problematic for some time. We have a couple members that very legitimately aren't comfortable meeting right now. And then, of course, we have one opening, so we're working to get applications in for that board as quickly as we can, but
I'm
maybe
trying
a
to
little bit.
remember, when we went through the process back, did we have, I felt like we had, maybe I'm confusing this with another board and my memory's not correct, but were we going to expand that committee, or am I thinking of something else?
There was a
And there was-
discussion about that, but it was decided not to do that.
Okay, and then, so did we have other applicants at that time that we were going to expand with? I don't recall.
I don't recall the details either.
Okay. Well, whoever those
We can look
people
back.
were, if they were there, please apply.
Yeah. And we have advertised that when we have an opening out of the normal cycle, then it does, ordinance states that we'll advertise it for 3 weeks.
Okay.
So we're getting that process out of the way, and then we can go back and look at some of the older ones, and if we do have some of those, I'm not opposed to making a phone call. and
Yeah.
Seeing if they're still interested.
Okay. I have a few things. I can read my notes. I wrote them on a very large piece of paper here. So, okay, we were going to do a resolution to appoint Elizabeth Baker to the TPO.
I checked on that, and they do not require a resolution, just a letter.
Okay,
So I have that prepared for your signature, and it's ready to go.
okay, cool. And then I know you're working on a resolution to have her being authorized to sign checks, and we'll get that done whenever we can.
So we'll have that at the next meeting.
Okay, that's cool. Then, God, I cannot read my writing. Oh, I was gonna just let you know, I was looking at the municipal code. I was going to the website and clicking on the link to go to the codes, and it goes to an error page on the MTAS. So I don't know if that can be fixed either through them or through us, but just wanted to let y'all know.
That's just very recent
Uh-huh.
that started
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. And also I noticed that, and this is not a vanity thing, but there's no pictures of any of the town. You got the only picture on the website of town council members, so we probably should do that at some point. Get some pictures of.
Yeah, if you guys can, I'll ask Chief Williams, he's been doing those for us, so we can schedule and get those done.
Okay.
Can I get mine by the height chart that I could?
The tallest member
We
of
can,
the
we can get you a
board
little
currently.
slate
Yeah,
to
give me a
hold
little
it.
slate.
The other, I didn't really have a chance to look into this. Couple things that citizens have asked me about. One is about a noise ordinance. And I think this has come up probably more because people are working at home more often than they used to. And then you have a lot of dogs barking during the day. I use a squirt bottle to try to keep my dog from barking, but it doesn't always work. But I don't know what our noise ordinance is, and if there's a problem, can that go to an administrative hearing officer? I mean, if there's a problem with
They just call the police department.
Oh, police department, okay.
Yeah, that would be cited through city court, town court.
I would imagine that during daylight hours, there's probably, I mean, there's no noise ordinance that would prevent, constant dog barking.
We actually reworked that, I don't remember what year, several years ago, but it is pretty detailed in what activities are allowed during what hours. Dogs barking excessively and insistently is considered a nuisance, so that can be addressed. But anything of that nature, they just need to call the police department,
Okay.
and they'll come up. We actually have some of it is down to the point of measuring the decibels at the point of annoyance.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting on your deck and you're annoyed, we'll come and see what that decibel level is. So it's pretty specific. So if they'll call, we'll see what we can do to resolve the issue. And a lot of times it's a matter of having a chat with the neighbor and taking care of it. If not, that can be cited to court.
Okay. I used to live in the city of Chattanooga, and I had a neighbor who was in the process of losing her mind and used to call the police to come out because our dog, who usually was inside, barked. And apparently they would have to measure the number of barks per a certain time period. And we have this police vehicle with the lights going in front of our house, and I'm like, of course the dog's gonna bark. That's a bad time to measure. But anyway, all right. The other thing is, and this is not for this meeting because it's a longer term discussion, but we all got an email from a citizen who wants us to they look into things that we don't need, like perks that the town offers that we don't need. And other people have emailed me about leaf pickup, saying we don't need leaf pickup. Some people think we don't need garbage service. I was just gonna, ask that maybe at one of our next meetings, we talk about the cost of leaf pickup and garbage service to the town and what alternatives there are if we were to get rid of those things. Just so that we, you guys out here and out there know that everything's on the table. We'll look at anything, and if we can try to save money or, do better services, we're gonna look at that. Because nobody likes their taxes being raised, so I think it's worthwhile to look into everything. Nothing's off the table. So maybe at some point, next meeting or the meeting after that, we look into what are we spending on these things. And
Maybe if we gather that information, we could do a survey monkey kind of thing and collect some data to see what people value in terms of services, what they're willing to pay for, and maybe what they're willing to do away with.
Right.
I would hate to make a unilateral decision on behalf of everybody up here, not having any data.
Oh, absolutely. And absolutely. It's something to discuss. It's not something to say, hey, a couple people don't want garbage service, let's get rid of it.
Yeah.
But I think we should discuss it because people want us to talk about it and know that we've looked into that. And if we decide that people want it, we should, keep it, and people know we've at least
That's right.
given it the due thought that it needed. All right. So not for today, obviously, but for another meeting. Anybody have anything else?
Kind of in conjunction with a departmental review, well, that might be too far out, I don't know, but.
It certainly could be, come up
yeah.
then too, yeah.
I'm doing some surveying in conjunction with that.
Yeah,
Could be pretty helpful.
yeah, I mean, surveys are not necessarily scientific, but it would be some gauge.
Yeah.
Yes. You might really generate a lot of interest, I think,
Yeah. So,
one way or the other.
all right, well, does anybody have anything else?
One other thing I wanted to mention, and Sam may want to come up just to update on email. Let you know, it hasn't been stagnant. Sam has been working hard.
And, you know, Sam, Alabama could still get in the Final Four with one loss. But, wait a minute, you probably don't want to talk about that now.
That was a tough day.
I mean, Vol fans are out there saying, hey, we've only got 2 losses,
Yeah.
right? I mean, only one behind
Well,
Alabama.
I talked to the Georgia fan back here earlier and said, I think
Yeah.
y'all may have us right now. But no, we've been going through a trial period with a certain email provider, and so far, we have not received any negative comments other than just a couple I passed on to Andrew, I've discussed with Bo. We've been doing that with all of our department heads and sort of more administrative type roles. The people who are going to be the bulk of our larger users of the account that aren't just necessarily just going to be checking whether they get an email every day. That's gone really well, and so I think we are to the point where we are hopefully ready to move forward. We've got a little bit more to do with each department to ensure that we are getting each individual the license that is going to best suit them for their needs and for what they do every day. But I think we are very close to a point where we can move forward on that and get everyone set up in a new system. So,
Great.
Right.
Y'all have any questions?
I have just a quick question. On the new system, will it allow, does it have the capability for like the records custodian to go in and collect out the emails for record request, or is that still going to be?
Yes, we will. It will probably be a simpler process than it is now. Technically, that ability exists now, but there is more of an intermediary. That has to be done through our current host.
Okay.
Rather than me as records custodian being able to go right up. Now, given someone's password, if they are okay with that, I have gone in and done those things before, but generally if it needs to be something, if it needs to be done from that higher level look, it's something that's done through the provider.
Okay.
But yes, to answer your question.
Okay.
And we have no ability to do that if the individual's not using the town account,
Correct.
which is often the case with council members and committees and such. So hopefully this will make the system more friendly, user-friendly, and we can confine everything to the town system, and then it will be far more manageable then.
And obviously, right now, of our boards and commissions, I believe that the council is the only one, the only, people that do receive a town-issued email. Should that be something you all would want to change, we would just need to know that, but obviously know that it would add additional cost.
Very significant.
Very significant
additional
cost. So.
So like to add an email address for like
For each
a
board
delivery,
member.
for like a delivery group would be more?
No, not a group.
So like,
No, I think what I was talking about was more of each individual board member having their own town-issued email address, where we would have to pay a monthly fee for that. So just to your point, as far as public records requests, things of that nature, if we get a public records request for things from the personnel committee, I don't have any access, obviously, to their email, and I have to rely on the people on that board to get me their information. It would be the same way with any other board, except for town council, should you be using your town issued account. I would have access to that, but not a personal account if someone was using that, obviously. I mean, that's,
but would there be the capability of creating, and I think it's called like a delivery group where it might and I'll just say personnel committee, would have an email address. And when a citizen would email that address, everybody would get that email in their preferred account.
That is probably something that we could set up. I would have to look into that, only because I haven't, because I believe there's ways you can if someone has one email, they can have it forwarded to another email. So if we set up an email address for personnelcommittee@sigmountaintn.gov.
Yeah, instead of every,
It might be able to be forwarded to whoever we thought was necessary.
yeah, instead of
that
just,
group.
like everybody having an individual
That's
account
something
email.
that would be possible,
Okay,
if that's what, the council would like to see.
okay.
The sooner we can get a new email system, the better. It's so difficult to use
Yeah,
it.
I think we're in a position to move forward on that within, I think we're talking weeks now and not. not
So,
any
so
longer.
you guys
I mean,
know my
That's to hopefully make the transition. within weeks.
advice to Sam kind of was, after looking at it, there were kind of two, we'll try not to mention names here, but two different major providers of email. You can probably guess who they are. One looked like they're both kind of the same cost when it comes to your recurring subscriptions annually. But one is significantly more expensive no matter who we try to find to use to implement it.
And for the migration
Pretty
process of what our
significant,
current.
yeah, very significant. So given that we kind of both know, we know both of them, and we know both of them are going to be a huge improvement, and they have the same annual cost, it's not probably really worth extending the time frame on this to go through a bid process, is my opinion. Just to find out that we're going to do this anyway, in this case, and we wouldn't have to do a bid process because it's below.
Right, where we stand
10,000.
with the provider that we are looking to move forward with would not require a bid process.
Okay.
So I think we can move more swiftly, get it implemented, get the change in place, and start doing some of these smarter things like having some email groups and things like that that could help out our boards to communicate with citizens.
Absolutely.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Does anybody have anything else to add? All right.